there's a myth about it, the live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse and all that, which sort of, you know...
There's not many groups do it.
There's not many groups do it, no. We thought it was a good gimmick, actually. I'm very surprised he went along with it. No, it's just something that happens. I mean, the Doors and Hendrix and all these classic examples. In a way, it puts an end to something so that people in the future can look back at it and say it started here and finished here. It's sort of like very neat and tidy.
I think the suicide thing, you know, it was nothing to do with the group, really, was it?
No.
I mean, that was
but
the
unfortunately,
other world of his personal life, Ian's personal life. But, you know, that happened.
Ian had taken an overdose some time before, and it's one of those things that we'd all assumed it was a cry for help, plea for anaesthesia or whatever. It was one of those ones that you presumed he was merely, you know, asking for help, and therefore it hadn't actually occurred to us that this would happen. It hadn't occurred. I think there is a mythic quality. I mean, Ian isn't a god, or wasn't a god, but I had rock and roll gods. I had Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that, and the early Bob Dylan, and they were worth having. It's a fabulous popular cultural experience to have those people as your little gods, and I think there's a whole world out there for whom Ian Curtis' mythic role can provide a level of feeling and of whatever that people deserve to have. I mean, all the new people who understand New Order now, maybe in the midst of this world of novelty singles, a little bit of significance and quality and intensity.
with this 1988 Quincy Jones remix of the biggest selling 12-inch of all time, Blue Monday, and a BPI award for Best Video for the single True Faith, New Order are a far cry from their days of the ultimate angst-ridden post-industrialist band of the age. In fact, in their hometown of Manchester, they built up something of an empire. With this recent acquisition, a 5-storey property which will open as a private members club called Dry later this year, and this place, the Hacienda, possibly the most futuristic-looking club in Europe, New Order and Factory have come a long way since their staunchly independent days, when they supposedly turned down a $1 million American bid for Joy Division. Is that true?
Well, these things fanning from Martin rather than strident independence. Did you hear this $1 million?
I heard it after the event. Yeah, I would have took $1 million. Yeah.
I don't think anybody approached the band with the offer. Only got as far as Martin Hannett.
6 miles out of central Manchester, this is Strawberry Studios, where Martin Hannett produced the bulk of Joy Division's music in the late 70s. A now bitter Hannett refused to appear in this feature, but instead he issued this statement. Unfortunately, my business hat was not firmly fixed to my producing head. To cut a long story short, I left Factory with a derisory percentage of the earnings from the sale of these records in comparison with the producer's fees I would have received from even the most avaricious major label. What do you think of that? The guys...
Better lawyers. He took us to court. It's his lawyers that agreed those amounts. We wanted to give him a better deal with points that he would have still been collecting on. He refused to accept the deal we offered him, which was a very, very good deal.
I mean, I think what's happened now is that the people that run that particular record label have in their kind of vocabulary a very kind of shrewd understanding of the way the world shifts. And there's no doubt that the idea of flogging the dead body, which is ultimately what it's about, however cruel that may sound, is really what they're involved in. It's the flogging of a dead body, it's the flogging of an image that they might be able to turn into a myth, which always comes down to a series of accidents, which in a sense we're playing part of. We increase the energetic response to this myth, this idea. You know, we're in a sense, we're all being forced subtly to respond. In no less a cynical way, I would have thought, than the way CBS flogged Boss.
What do you think of that?
I've always thought Paul Moore was full of shit anyway.
Seriously, does it work to your disadvantage that the myth of Ian Curtis continues?
Well, that's part of the reason why I don't like the video, which you haven't asked me about yet, because I think the video very much concentrates on...
What video?
The Atmosphere video concentrates on Ian very much, and I don't like it. I was never really consulted about the video, and I don't like the Atmosphere video.
How do you think it's going to be perceived now as you're going to release the compilation LP? substance, and
I think
the others will
people
follow.
have got to perceive it as some sort of rip-off, really.
Why now, though? Why this particular point in time, which is it's not an anniversary, it's an arbitrary 7.5, 8 years after the event?
To help us with our tax problems, I think it is.
New Order and Joy Division never put singles on albums. So when we began to do CDs 3 or 4 years ago, we said, do you want to put your singles on the extra end bits? And they said, no, leave the albums as they are. So therefore, we always knew we had to do a CD of the singles. We happened to get around to New Orders last year, merely because it was harder to find the tapes for Joy Division. We got around to that this year. It is merely the accident of bringing out the digital versions of those singles which don't exist. But then it provides you with an opportunity to say, look at this, this was the greatest rock artist of his generation, and isn't it interesting that it's so shitty these days?
I think if anybody's got the same kind of spirit and drive and response to the world as Joy Division now as a young person, they wouldn't go into pop. Because the people that own pop, and we all know who they are, will not allow it to happen. Which is, again, is another tragedy, which is why it's even more poignant to hear Atmosphere. Maybe Atmosphere was genuinely the full stop, the most poignant representation of what young people feel put on record. Maybe that was genuinely the full stop, and maybe now, as we approach the 90s and it's re-released in all this kind of necessary hype, maybe some people will stop and think, yeah, that was the end. That song was the end of pop.